Okay, so Brazil. Everyone pictures those amazing beaches, right?
Yeah,
And the energy of Carnival.
of course. It's iconic.
But for this deep dive,
We're going deeper.
exactly, we're not just skimming the surface.
Right.
We're lucky to have this guide aimed at tourists.
Oh, those are always revealing.
It is. It's like, what does a country want people to know about it?
Yeah, what they choose to highlight says a lot.
And one thing is clear.
Oh.
Brazil is all about its diversity.
Yeah, front and center in this guide. It's not even subtle.
Not at all. And it's not just like, oh, we've got beaches and mountains kind of diversity.
Right.
It's woven through everything.
It really is.
I mean, one minute I'm reading about rainforest, next it's a bustling metropolis.
That's the thing, though.
It's almost like whiplash, but in a good way.
Aha, exactly. That variety is amazing for tourists, sure.
Of course.
But for understanding Brazil, it's not just a fun fact. Diversity is like fundamental to its DNA.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How so?
Well, think about it. You've got indigenous roots layered with African and European influence.
Wow, yeah, when you put it like that.
It's centuries of cultural exchange mixing and merging.
And that creates something truly unique.
And you can see this, not just read about it, like in Salvador.
Salvador.
The Afro-Brazilian culture there is so vibrant, it's incredible.
Like a living history lesson.
Totally. Oh, speaking of cities, this guide has a most visited capitals section.
Oh, yeah, that caught my eye, too.
Good place to start, right? Get a feel for the different vibes.
So, Rio first, obviously.
Gotta have Rio. Iconic sites, no way around it.
Christ the Redeemer, Sugarloaf Mountain, all that.
But they're not just listing landmarks, they're selling the energy, especially during Carnival.
Oh, man, I bet.
You can almost feel it through the pages, that pulsing rhythm.
Now, São Paulo, they're not holding back, are they?
No, they're making it clear. This isn't just Brazil's New York City.
Which some people might assume.
It's its own beast. Global hub, sophisticated, and they mention the food scene.
Now we're talking.
Yeah.
I do love a good food adventure.
Who doesn't? And then, like, they saved the best for last, there's Salvador.
Okay, bring on the cultural immersion.
That's where all those influences we talked about, the indigenous, African, European,
Come together.
just like, bam, right there in front of you.
Festivals, history, architecture.
It's got it all. And then, to prove how diverse their cities are,
We get the curveball.
Florianopolis, total chill, surf culture, laid-back vibes.
The opposite end of the spectrum.
Exactly. It drives home the point. There is a Brazil for everyone.
No matter what you're into.
Exactly. City lover, nature enthusiast, history buff.
There's a place for you.
Guaranteed.
Okay, I gotta ask about something this guide keeps mentioning.
Hit me with it.
Brazilian hospitality. Is it just me, or are they laying it on thick?
Good question. Is it genuine warmth or just marketing?
Because they are trying to attract tourists.
Well, sure. But then they mention this detail.
Right.
Apparently, welcome to Brazil is like a super common phrase.
Interesting. So it's not just welcome to my shop kind of thing. No. More like a national sentiment.
Like they genuinely want you to be there.
Yeah, it's more than just being polite. It's like that feeling you get when you walk into a place.
And instantly feel at ease.
Like you belong.
Yeah, that welcoming energy can make or break a trip.
Especially to a new country, where you might feel lost.
Right. You're a little unsure, then bam.
It's like, welcome to Brazil!
Suddenly you relax, your shoulders drop, you're ready for the adventure.
Such a small thing, but it makes a huge difference.
Totally. And speaking of things that make a difference,
Let's talk beaches.
we can't not talk beaches, come on.
The guide obviously goes all out, which is fair.
I mean, have you seen pictures of Brazilian beaches?
Gorgeous. But what I liked was, even within beaches, they emphasized variety.
Right. Not just, beaches are good, come lie on one.
More like, what kind of beach experience are you looking for?
Exactly. Tranquil coves, hidden away.
Versus those lively party scenes.
With music and caipirinhas flowing.
They even name-drop specific spots.
Like Jericoacoara, known for its untouched beauty.
And Buzios, which is more energetic, a bit of a see-and-be seen vibe.
It's like they're saying, yeah, we've got your classic beach vacation.
But we've also got something totally unique just for you.
And that, my friend, brings us right back to diversity.
Full circle.
Brazil isn't a one-size-fits-all destination. They celebrate that people are different.
And that's reflected even in something as iconic as their beaches.
Exactly. Okay, I'm getting hungry just thinking about this next part.
Uh-huh. Let's talk food.
Yes, everyone knows about Brazilian barbecue.
A meat? Oh, the meat?
But this guide got me intrigued by dishes I'd never even heard of.
Yeah, what caught your eye?
Feijoada acarajé. The names alone sound delicious.
And they're smart, not just listing them.
They give you a taste, like, what is this thing?
I like that. Piques your curiosity.
So feijoada, it's this hearty black bean stew loaded with meats,
Oh, what?
practically a national treasure.
I can see why.
Akarahe is more street food style. Black-eyed pea fritters, shrimp, a little spicy kick.
Stop. I'm getting hungry. What about drinks?
Well, everyone knows caipirinha,
The classic.
but they mentioned cachaça, which is the key ingredient.
Right.
But cachaça is so much more than just caipirinha.
Really?
It's like the base for a whole world of Brazilian spirits,
Yeah.
just waiting to be discovered.
Sounds like we've got some exploring to do.
Definitely. It's like they're inviting you on a sensory journey through the food and drinks, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears a bit.
Okay, where are we going?
All this talk of diversity got me thinking about the history. Like, how did Brazil become this melting pot?
Good question. This guide doesn't go super deep,
Right. It's more of a surface level thing.
but it does hint at a complex history. Colonization, immigration, waves of cultural exchange.
It's layers upon layers.
It starts with the indigenous peoples, of course. They were thriving there for centuries before.
Before the Europeans showed up.
Exactly. Then, in the 16th century, the Portuguese arrive. Everything changes.
That's a turning point for sure.
And that colonization period, it left a huge mark.
I mean, language, religion, government.
Their whole system imposed on this existing culture.
But it's not like the indigenous people just disappeared.
Oh, no. There was resistance, adaptation. They fought to preserve their traditions.
And that's key, right? Because their influence is still felt today.
Absolutely. It's not just what the Portuguese brought, it's how the indigenous people responded, adapted, and ultimately contributed.
It's this constant push and pull, like a negotiation between cultures.
Exactly. And then we get another layer added to the mix.
Okay, I'm sensing a pattern here.
Enslaved Africans brought by the Portuguese to work on the sugar plantations.
Oh, wow, that's right. I'd almost forgotten about that part.
Their impact is undeniable. Music, food, spiritual practices.
It's woven into the fabric of Brazil.
You could argue they shaped the very soul of the country we know today.
So we're talking indigenous roots, layered with Portuguese influence, and then the undeniable impact of African culture.
That's the recipe for Brazil, my friend.
No wonder this guide keeps emphasizing diversity.
Right. It's not just a selling point. It's baked into their DNA.
And that's important for visitors to understand, right?
Well, absolutely. When you visit Brazil, you're not just seeing sights.
It's deeper than that.
You're stepping into this living history, a testament to resilience and the power of cultures blending together.
Okay, I'm officially hooked on the historical side of things,
Me too.
but let's get real for a second. No country's perfect, right?
True enough.
Does the guide address any of the challenges Brazil faces?
It's funny you should ask that
Because most touristy stuff glosses over the negatives.
Totally. But this guide, it surprised me. It actually acknowledges, briefly, that there are socioeconomic issues at play.
Really? That's unexpected.
They mention that while Brazil's made progress fighting poverty and inequality,
Which is great.
they say there's still work to be done.
Right. It's an ongoing
They
process.
touch on income gaps, access to
Yeah.
education and healthcare.
Things that are often worse outside the big cities, unfortunately.
Exactly. So they're not pretending everything's perfect, you know.
They're giving a more complete picture.
I respect that. It's more honest. Plus, it shows they're aware of these issues.
And hopefully working to address them.
Exactly. It adds a layer of depth to the whole thing.
It's like they're saying, we're proud of who we are, but we're also striving to be better.
Yeah. I like that. It makes it feel more real.
You know what this reminds me of?
What's that?
Something we talked about earlier. Saudade.
Ah, saudade.
That Portuguese word that can't really be translated.
That it's about longing, nostalgia.
A bittersweet kind of feeling.
It's so powerful. And it's everywhere in Brazilian culture.
Music, literature, even just everyday conversations.
Exactly. It's that feeling of missing someone or something deeply.
But also recognizing the beauty in that longing.
It's not all sadness, you know? It's more complex than that. It's like fully embracing the bittersweet nature of life, not just focusing on the happy parts.
But acknowledging the sadness, the longing as part of the whole experience.
Exactly. And that gives us such great insight into the Brazilian way of thinking.
It does. It's like they're not afraid of difficult emotions.
They incorporate them into their art, their music, their way of life.
It's beautiful, really.
It is, but how does it actually manifest?
Good question.
Can you give some specific examples of saudade in action?
Good question. I'm thinking of bossa nova music.
Perfect example. those melancholic melodies, those yearning lyrics,
Sure, so dad.
or Brazilian literature, filled with stories of love, loss, the complexities of human relationships.
All steeped in saudade.
It's like this undercurrent running through everything.
So even amidst all that joy and vibrancy we talked about,
That energy, the beaches, the carnival,
there's this awareness of the other side of things.
that life is full of both light and be shadow.
And that's what makes it so relatable, I think.
It's honest. Brazil isn't about pretending everything's perfect.
That's about embracing the full L spectrum of human experience.
The good and the bad, the joy and the sorrow.
It's like they're saying, life is messy, it's complicated, but it's beautiful.
I love that. Makes you want to experience it firsthand, right?
Okay, I'm officially ready to book that flight.
Me too.
But before I get carried away, let's talk practicalities.
Okay, back down to earth.
What kind of advice does this guide give to first-time visitors?
That's where it really shines. Practical tips galore.
Lay it on me.
Visas, transportation, currency exchange, all the essentials.
The nitty-gritty stuff.
It's all covered, so it's not just about getting you excited about Brazil.
It's about equipping you to actually make the trip happen.
Exactly. They even cover the best time to visit different regions, tips for staying safe.
Oh, that's important, especially if you're not familiar with the area.
Right. They even have some basic Portuguese phrases.
Oh, I love that. Trying to speak the language always goes a long way.
It shows respect and makes connecting with locals so much easier.
It's clear they want visitors to have a positive experience.
For sure.
It ties back to that hospitality we were talking about.
Welcome to Brazil.
They're not just saying it. They're giving you the tools to truly feel at home.
It's thoughtful.
Okay, but what about cultural etiquette? Beyond just practical stuff.
Oh, they have some great tips for navigating Brazilian culture.
Like what? I'm all ears.
They emphasize personal connections.
Okay, makes sense.
Brazilians are warm, informal. They value building relationships.
So it's not just about following rules, it's about understanding the spirit behind them.
Exactly. They encourage visitors to embrace the slower pace of life.
Oh man, I could use some of that.
Right. Engage in conversations, be open to spontaneous encounters.
That's what travel is all about, right?
It's about experiencing a different way of life, connecting with people on a deeper level.
Okay, I'm sold. So we've covered the history, the culture, the practicalities.
Even the emotional nuances.
So Dad, is there anything else that this guide touches on that we haven't explored yet?
You know, there's one more thing that really stood out to me.
Oh, what's that?
The guides focus on responsible tourism. They really want visitors to think about their impact.
That's so important.
Not just on the environment.
Yeah, but also on the local communities.
Exactly. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of travel, you know?
Right, totally. You're in a new place, just soaking it all in.
And you forget that you're not just an observer.
You're part of the ecosystem.
Right. Your actions have consequences, both good and bad.
So it's about being mindful.
And making conscious choices,
Yeah.
shifting our mindset from consuming to contributing.
I like that. It's like travel with intention.
Travel with respect.
It seems like this guide is doing a lot more than just giving information.
It's deeper than that.
It's almost like a philosophy of travel.
I think that's a great way to put it. It's encouraging a deeper engagement with Brazil.
Not just scratching the surface.
Right. It's about peeling back the layers.
And revealing the true heart of the country.
Connect with the people, the culture, the natural beauty.
But do it responsibly, with awareness.
Exactly.
This deep dive has been amazing.
I've loved it.
We went from beaches and carnival
Which are amazing, don't get me wrong.
to uncovering the historical and cultural depths of Brazil.
And even the emotional nuances.
Saudade.
It's clear this country has so much more to offer than meets the eye.
It really does. And I
Uh-huh.
think that sense of discovery, that's what the guide is trying to capture.
It is. That there's always more to learn, more to experience.
Speaking of the future, does the guide give any hints about what lies ahead for Brazil?
They don't make any specific predictions, but they do highlight certain trends.
Oh, like what?
They mention Brazil's growing influence on the global stage,
That's interesting.
both economically and politically.
So they're stepping into a more prominent leadership role.
It seems that way. They point to their advancements in renewable energy,
That's great to hear.
sustainable development, even international diplomacy. And their tech sector is booming.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
Sounds like they're poised to become a global innovation hub.
So there's this whole other layer to consider.
How Brazil's evolving role in the world might shape our experiences.
Yeah, our interactions with the country.
It's a good reminder that travel isn't about visiting a static place.
Frozen in time.
Right. It's about engaging with a living, breathing entity.
That's constantly changing and growing.
Exactly.
Okay, before we wrap up, I have to ask,
Go for it.
if you could capture the essence of Brazil in just one word, what would it be?
Oh, wow. That's a tough one. There are so many facets, so much richness and depth.
I know, right? But if you had to choose,
I think I'd say soulful.
soulful, I like that.
Brazil has this incredible soul, this vibrant energy that's both joyous and melancholic, passionate and resilient.
That's perfect. It really encapsulates everything we talked about today.
It does, doesn't it?
Well, on that note, we'll leave you to ponder all that we've explored
Keep seeking knowledge, keep questioning.
and keep embracing the joy of discovery.